all beings are divine by nature. There's a spark of divinity in everyone. It is hidden and only dormant. That has to be manifested. 2, the microcosm and the macrocosm are built upon the same plan, the unity of all existence. From this follow the entire program which he gave for the future society. What was that? If I am divine and I manifest this divinity, I struggle to manifest divinity at every movement of my life, and if I, as the microcosm, is identical with the macrocosm, which is all of you, the entire universe, then the universe itself has to be divine. Because I can't be divine and this can't be devilish. I can't consider myself God and consider you as a devil. If I consider myself to be God, I have to, per se, necessarily consider each one of you to be gods. What happens then? The whole outlook on life changes. Interpersonal transaction changes. Your outlook on life changes. When you smile at everybody, you know the divine permeating everywhere. And the consciousness of divinity which is permeating you, your body, your mind, your consciousness, that will overflow, as it were, and permeate the entire universe, and you see the whole world is permeated by the divine consciousness. Isha vasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita magrida kasadid dhanam, as the Upanishad said. The whole thing is permeated by the divine consciousness. So the microcosm, macrocosm unity, which Vivekananda discovered based upon the Vedanta, is based upon one of his very profound realizations in Almora, which he records in a diary in Bengali, and tells about this realization to his very dear brother disciple Gangadhar, Akhandananda. He said, one of the greatest problems in my life has been solved. I have discovered the unity of the microcosm and the macrocosm. I can see the entire universe in one atom. Which means, what you call the microcosm is only a miniature version of the macrocosm. And what you call the macrocosm is only an expanded version of the microcosm. You go still deeper. You don't say there are two entities called the micro and the macrocosms. You say there is only one entity which appears as the micro on the one side and the macro on the other, as long as the microcosm feels that it is the body and the mind. If I transcend my consciousness of the body and the mind, I will know there is only one infinite expanse of consciousness in which, like waves, so many universes and beings are rising and falling. Swami Vivekananda deeply and profoundly influenced in this by the Ashtavakra Samhita, which his great master Ramakrishna put into his head, in spite of Swami Vivekananda's protests. Narendranath would have none of it. So Ramakrishna used to call him to his door, he'd close the door, bring out a small book from under his pillow, the Ashtavakra Samhita, one of the greatest books in Advaita. Sir, please read this to me. After reading a couple of lines, Narendra used to protest, I will not. These rishis who have written these books, I am God, I am this infinite, these are all wrong. Rishi, their mata kharab hoye gaye. They have lost their heads. And Ramakrishna used to smile and said, you may not accept them, but why do you call names of the rishis? Then Ramakrishna knew how to tame Naren. Naren can't be so easily tamed, the lion of Vedanta that he was. But the greatest weakness of Narendra, if somebody says, it's not for you, but for me, Narendra will immediately melt. ঠাকুর বললেন দেখো আমি তো মূর্খ আমি তো বুঝতে পারি না আমার জন্য একটু পড় না The moment he said you read it for me I am a fool I can't read the Sanskrit, immediately Naren melted, started reading it till what he read went deep into his consciousness and transformed his life, and through him transformed millions of human beings. All of us are here only because of the transformation which Ramakrishna brought about Narendra's psyche through the study of the Advaita Vedanta, the Ashtavakra Samhita. The famous verses there, which Swami Vivekananda quoted later on, the Naren who refused to study, even have nothing to do with this, later on said, one of the lectures he said, never forget the glory of human nature. Buddhas and Christs are but the waves of the infinite ocean which I am, striking his chest. Ramarana quote this. Mayyananta mahambodho ascharyam jiva vichayah udyanti ghananti khelanti pravishanti svabhavataha. I am that infinite ocean of consciousness in which hundreds of thousands of waves and bubbles are rising and falling. These worlds, the human beings, the beings, the animals, plants, all of them are like bubbles and waves in that infinite ocean of consciousness which I am. The whole outlook on life is transformed. So what happens then? You awaken to a new level of consciousness in which you don't see evil anywhere. Evil is there, but evil also becomes transformed. The devil gets transformed, as it were, into God. This came to Swami Vivekananda several times. In one letter he writes, a very famous letter he writes, at 20 years of age, I was the most uncompromising, unsympathetic fanatic. I would not walk on the road near the theatre side in Calcutta. At 33, I can live in the same house with prostitutes and not feel like saying a word of reproach to them. Is it degenerate? Or is it that I am growing into that universal love which is God Himself? Sometimes I feel that there is no evil. Even the devil, I will go and embrace him. They say one's work cannot go on well unless one sees evils and defects. But my work is going on splendidly. I'm in one of these moods now. He says, I, Sakhe, fill up the cup and we will be mad. It's a funny world, and the funniest chap you ever saw is He, the beloved infinite. Brotherhood or playmatehood, a school of romping children let out to play. They want explanations. But how can you explain Him? He is brainless and is fooling us with little brains. This time He would not catch me napping. I have found out a thing or two. Beyond reason is that love, that infinite expanse. Yours ever in madness, Swami Vivekananda. So whole life gets transformed. If a person feels that within him, that overflows in such a way that affects all the people around him. How many people came to Vivekananda, got transformed by his touch, by his glance, by his talks? Shangarveda Mudalayar, whom Swamiji nicknamed as Kidi. Swamiji was very fond of giving nicknames to everybody, including his own guru. You know what was the name of his own guru? He called him Budo. Budo Baman, Budo, old man. Ramakrishna was not that old. He was just at the age of 50, but appeared very old. Only person for whom he has the highest respect, Sri Sarada Devi, about whom he always wrote, Maake ama shatakoti sashtanga pranam debe. 100,000 shatakoti, so many billions of sashtanga pranams, prostrations to Holy Mother. This Kidi actually in Tamil means a parrot. His voice was so funny, so he nicknamed it as Kidi. Sringaraveda Mudaliyar was a professor of mathematics in Pachapas College, one of the famous colleges in Chennai at that time, in Madras. He came to challenge Swamiji. By a mere touch, can you transform me? Kidi said, Kidi, don't touch me, don't touch me. He went and touched him. He was not the same again. He could not go back home. He became a kind of ascetic, constantly absorbed in some kind of divine consciousness for which he was not prepared. The story is, he seems he used to go and beg in the street somewhere, and he used to go to his own house to beg of his wife and children for some food. And they used to scold him right and left, to throw him out. You fellow, you have given up your job, you become hopelessly religious, don't come here anymore. Swami Ramakrishna picked him up and said, why are you getting insulted going there to your own home? You come to the ashrama for prasad. He said, no, Swamiji, I will not go. I want to go again and again to my home and get scolded, insulted, so that my ego will be crushed. The great sadhana which I am going through, please don't disturb me. By a touch, by a glance. The story of Emma Khalve is well known. Emma Khalve was a great celebrity in France at that time, an opera singer and an actor. As most celebrities are, she was so deeply frustrated, disappointed, sad at heart, perhaps wanting to commit suicide. Somebody said, there's a great Indian yogi in Paris, go and meet him. She made an appointment, entered Swamiji's study. Swamiji is sitting there, not even looking at her. The moment this lady entered, Swamiji said, Oh, what a terrible atmosphere you have brought with you, my child. Calm down, calm down. As soon as she sat there, Swamiji looked into her eye and started talking about some of the deepermost secrets which she had not shared with anybody. She became flabbergasted, confused, confounded, terrified, frightened. Swamiji, what is happening to me? I don't know. How did you know all this? Did anybody talk to you about me? Swamiji smiled and said, is it necessary? I can read you like an open book. Then Swamiji gave her a tremendous impulse, spiritual impulse. You are not a small little entity. Don't cry like a baby. I'm encased in this body. I'm upset. And give up all these negative ideas. You are that infinite. You are a child of that infinite. The great presence is within you. You are the divine. That spiritual impulse worked so much within her. She found her little individuality as Emma Calvé was simply vanishing into nothingness. She became terribly frightened. Swami, you are taking away myself from me. I'm losing my individuality. Swamiji used to make fun of these Westerners. You Westerners are so fond of, terrified about losing your individuality. Making fun of the individuality. And you are not individuals yet. You shall be when you will become universal. Then he told her a story. A water drop was falling into the ocean. And the drop was crying miserably. He said, why are you crying, my child? Oh, I am going to lose my individuality as the drop. Then the ocean smiled and said, my child, you are not going to lose your individuality as the drop. You are going to regain your individuality as the ocean. You were the ocean, you were me, and you went away somewhere and coming back to my bosom and to join your billions and trillions of sisters and brothers who are water drops like you. Come back. That is the vision Swami Vivekananda gave for a human being, and that is the vision which he felt will transform human society into transaction. In a letter to Kidi, he writes, every human being, every being is divine, is like a sun covered with so many clouds of ignorance. And it is the duty of every person to think of himself as the divine and to treat others as such as gods. Interpersonal relationship will be changed. If the divinity in me is reflected in the divinities of everybody, the whole life will become a divine transaction, rather than a human or a human-devil transaction. It is possible. Swami Vivekananda believed it is possible. Because it is possible because that is your real nature. And Swami Vivekananda therefore said, believe in this. Teach everyone, teach everybody his real nature and see how miracle happens. Call upon the sleeping soul and see how it awakens. Power will come, glory will come, purity will come, greatness will come. All this good and grand will come when the sleeping soul awakens to its self-conscious activity. This belief in the power of the Atman, which is your real nature, will transform society completely. The present day world, we're talking about science and technology, the mega trends we talk about. Science and technology has taken charge of everything. And man is now beginning to believe that the human intelligence can be completely replicated by the machines. The artificial intelligence will take over. It is not necessary for human beings to anymore boast of the superior intelligence. You know the famous book which Roger Penrose wrote years ago, the first book which he wrote, The Emperor's New Mind, is a parody in The Emperor's New Clothes, arguing against artificial intelligence. The bone of contention is the following. Does the human brain follow an algorithmic way of thinking or no? Just like a computer is being programmed algorithmically, and this machine is trained to think in a particular way. The human brain, does it think exactly in the same way algorithmically or no? Roger Penrose begins with an interesting story. The story is the following. A supercomputer was being inaugurated in the United States, and the inventor of this machine, the great omniscience, was so proud of it, and the topmost bureaucrats had come, technocrats had come, the president of the United States himself was present, and is going to be inaugurated. They had a very novel way of inaugurating it. The inventor said, "Ladies and gentlemen, now we are faced with a great omniscience in the form of this machine, the supercomputer. Who will ask the first question by way of inaugurating this computer?" Nobody dared to get up. Who will appear stupid before the omniscience? There's a small boy who got up and said, "Sir, I will put the first question, sir." Then everybody, after all, he is a child, let him get exposed. He said, "How does it feel to be a computer?" Then the computer went on calculating for hours together. An hour gone, 2 hours gone. Finally he said, "I don't know." Everybody laughed aloud. He begins with this story and says, the computer may work very fast. Computer may, in split second, it may do several things. But the computer does not know that he is doing all this. Computer is a computer because it is not in possession of what we call the self-awareness or the self-consciousness, which is the unique thing in beings. Swamiji gives a beautiful example. Contrast these two pictures. A huge locomotive is going at tremendous speed on the rails. And on the rail there's a very small worm, an insect, which, being terribly afraid of the noise and the bustle, was trying to wriggle out of the path so as to save itself. Swamiji asks the question, which is greater? Is it the huge locomotive or the small little worm? This little worm may appear to be absolutely insignificant, but the little worm has the capacity to move away from the path of its own will, which this locomotive can't. Locomotive is programmed by the human intelligence to move exactly in that path, and it has to. Julian Huxley, the famous biologist, wrote once, "You can exactly predict the physical sciences, the astrophysics will exactly predict the orbits of the sun and the moon and the stars. After 1,000 years, what will be the position of the sun and the moon? You can exactly predict sitting now in your computer. But you can't just predict the orbit of a common housefly or a mosquito." This mosquito is sitting there. Belur Math is so full of mosquitoes. We are very clever fellows. Is sitting there. I watched once. And then you go, you want to somehow that fellow creating trouble for you. And then carefully you go, and just when you're about to hit it, that fellow flies there and sits there and looks at you. What are they going to do now? You can't do anything to that mosquito. Mosquito chooses to fly in its own way, in its own orbit. You can't predict the orbit of a mosquito, because life and consciousness, they introduce something in that being which human beings can't predict. The inability, incapacity of the human mind to be able to predict the play of consciousness is the beauty of life. You can't exactly say how consciousness will predict. Shankara, the great Advaitic proponent, one of the greatest geniuses the world has produced, said, what is the difference between truth per se and the will of man which can manipulate? He called it Purusha Tantra and Vastu Tantra. That is the word which is used. Vastu is objective, exactly as it is. What is called Yatha Bhuta Darshana, as Buddha said. And the Purusha Tantra is dependent on the human will. Kartum, akartum, anyatha kartum va shakyate. It can be done this way, it can be done another way, or it not be done at all. But that which is mechanized, that which exactly happens, has to happen exactly in that way. And therefore, the whole of the future society, which is based upon machines and science and technology on the one hand, if all the technology and all sciences and all the machines can be used to manifest the divinity which is within, and every one of our activities is informed by, interpenetrated by, and completely suffused with the divine consciousness, how wonderful life will change. The whole outlook on life itself will change. To be able to do that, Swami Vivekananda said, you need an extraordinarily different kind of a vision. Is it possible? You have to have such an intensity and a depth of understanding on the one hand, On the other hand, you have to have an extraordinary extensity and expanse. In one place he writes, a narrow stream is extremely deep. A broad stream is usually very shallow. Is it possible to combine extensity and intensity in the same individual? Broad as the skies and deep as the ocean was Swamiji's phrase. Is it possible for a person to be so liberal, so universal, so expansive, so accommodative, so inclusive, at the same time be extremely deep and profound, as if he is extremely fanatical about every little thing? The passion and the fanaticism of a fanatic minus his fanaticism, combined with the infinite expanse and understanding, the inclusiveness of a person who is extraordinarily liberal. Very liberal people are usually very shallow. When we talk about liberalism and accepting everything, we said anything goes. You can do anything, it's okay. You have no conviction, you have no depths of understanding. That is not what Swamiji wanted. Those who are very particular about their convictions and this has to be done exactly in this way, usually are very narrow, very fanatical. Swamiji said, is it possible to combine these two? Then he gives the answer. In Sri Ramakrishna's life we have seen great depth, intensity, combined with extraordinary expanse and liberalism. In one person, if it is possible to combine these two, then the society also can be modeled on the basis of a combination of intensity and extensity. After all, society is only an aggregate of individuals. This is another vision which Swamiji gave. And Swamiji sometimes said, I do not exactly know whether these will be translated into actuality in future, but I am dreaming a dream, let me throw it. But the dreams of great men don't die so easily. We believe that all the thoughts which we have come from an extraordinary cosmic mind. We call the Hiranyagarbha in Vedanta, the Mahat in Sankhya. The huge cosmic store of consciousness in which the ideas completely flow. When I talk about this, the students say, oh, the Hiranyagarbha we don't believe. But I tell them, the moment you click at the mouse and then download something from the Google, what is it that is happening? The huge cosmic server there in which all the knowledge is stored. All that you need to do is to download, that's all. And when I am talking to you, when I upload something into the Hiranyagarbha, somebody else can download from anywhere. So to be able to download and upload from the Hiranyagarbha at will is the yoga, is the sadhana, for which you need a password, which is the mantra, which is very personal to me. I will not tell it to anybody else. This is my password, my mantra. So this cosmic server, which contains all the ideas in the entire universe, is what supplies all the information to you, all the knowledge to you, all the power to you. Now, to be able to be in tune with this cosmic server, to be able to be in tune with this infinite collective consciousness of humanity, is the whole vision of the futuristic society which Swami Vivekananda wanted. Every one of the human beings and the other beings in the universe will live in such a way they will always be attuned to the infinite consciousness. To live a life of attunement to the infinity, to live a life in you are always connected to the infinity. Every one of us will desire infinite broadband connectivity 24/7. That is the dream of every young boy or girl. What is your connectivity? Oh, connectivity is low, I couldn't download many things. You are given infinite broadband connectivity 24/7, 365 days in a year, 100 years in your life. Come on, go. This is the Vedantic vision in which you are always in connect with the infinite. The Bhagavad Gita calls it yukta. It's a very beautiful word. Yuj means to connect. Yukta means to be able to be connected. Satata yukta, always connected. Nitya yukta, completely and totally, eternally connected. This is the vision of Swami Vivekananda's idea of every one of the human beings will be vertically connected to the infinite all the time and horizontally connected to all the human beings and all the beings on the other plane, because all the beings are connected through the infinite. So an idea of interconnectivity is emerging now in the physical plane, in the plane of the ICT, information communication technology. We are so connected to everybody. The greatest urge in a human being has been debated for a long time, starting from Freud and Adler and so on. What is the greatest urge in a human being? The Freud said the pleasure principle, somebody said the power principle, so many principles are talked about. But the greatest urge in a human being, which we are witnessing now, is the urge to stay connected. Duniya muthi mein, that is the slogan. You want to be connected to everybody. Even a rag picker in the street, even a beggar woman who doesn't have 2 square meals in a day has a mobile phone with a double SIM. She may not have 2 meals, but there's 2 SIMs. Why? That is because the fundamental urge, which transcends even hunger and thirst, is to be connected. I feel so happy to be connected to the world. So the capacity to be able to be connected has been shown by the power of technology in a big way, and that has led to what we call the globalization. Economic globalization, technological globalization is taking place. Swami Vivekananda envisioned a society in which a spiritual globalization will take place. Not that spiritual globalization will transcend the economic and the technological globalization and replace them, but there's only one globalization, which is the infinite globalization, and the technological, the physical, the mental, the intellectual will be only different manifestations of this infinite global manifestation. In his famous paper on Hinduism, which he read at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago, Swamiji spoke about 3 levels of monism, 3 levels of connectedness, 3 levels of union, Advaita, monism. He talked about the physical monism, the materialistic monism, the philosophical monism at the mental level, and the spiritual monism at the highest level. Swamiji believed that these 3 are not 3 different things. Now we are slowly advancing towards unification, connectivity, and globalization. It has come in a big way, and therefore human beings have realized they can't divide themselves anymore in terms of country, in terms of race, in terms of gender, and the assertion of human rights is coming up because human beings have realized they can't be isolated anymore. The power of technology to be able to unite people, even at the physical level, is getting manifest so much. And Vivekananda must have been so glad if he had got the using of the iPods and if he had the videographing Swami Vivekananda's lectures, how wonderful it would have been. But of course we have the photographs. Swami Vivekananda and Ramakrishna are so fond of technology. Ramakrishna ran to see how the photograph is being taken in the studio. He went to a circus, he went to a studio, he went to the zoological garden. And then please show me how this happens. Swami just so marveled at the advance of technology at that time. That is because he found these are only manifestations of the Vedantic vision which has been talked about in India for thousands of years. Science has realized it theoretically and practically. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest men of all time, leave alone a physicist, once said, "My religion consists of a humble adoration of an illimitable intelligence which our dull faculties can comprehend only in the most primitive form." I will end with this quote. "The most sublime and the most profound emotion one can feel is the sensation of the religious and the mystical. It is truly the sour of all science. He who is a stranger to this emotion, who can no longer stand and wonder in rapt awe, is as good as dead. To know what is impenetrable really exists, manifesting itself as the highest wisdom and the most radiant beauty, which our dull faculties can understand only in the most ordinary form. This feeling at the center of all scientific research. This cosmic, religious, and mystical consciousness is truly the mainspring of all scientific research." This is coming in a big way in poetry, in philosophy, in religion, of course, and in technology, in science. Everywhere people are realizing their unity and oneness, And people are trying to experiment, make very, very expensive experiments, just as Large Hadron Collider, which we saw very recently, to find out how these things happen, how did the Big Bang occur. Can there be two different laws, one for the micro, one the macro, which is the gravitational level, the other for the micro, extremely the subatomic levels? Does nature have two different laws of these two? Then can nature be so uneconomical? These questions have been raised, superstring theories are being talked about, and the theory of everything, TOE, the unified field theory for which Einstein struggled so hard. So many ideas are now coming and bombarding the human consciousness, awakening it to a level in which Sarvam Bhavati Ekanidam, all the Vishwa, the entire universe becomes a small nest, in which you realize yourself as just a drop in the infinite ocean and realizing that you are the ocean. You are the world and the world is you. And you are not a small little entity. You are that infinite, and to be able to realize and feel this and manifest this feeling and consciousness in your day-to-day interaction, in society, when you talk to your servants, when you talk to your boss, when you talk to anybody, men, the idea of man, woman, child, gender, he belongs to this country, that country, everything will vanish. Swamiji once said, no chauvinism about me. I belong as much to the whole world as to India. What is India or America or England or France to us?